I couldn't keep still in my seat last night. It's probably quite annoying for the people sitting next to me because I was either on the edge of it, sort of with all the tension, or jumping with the scares. What do you like when you're watching movies with lots of scares and gore?
I'm pathetic. My husband hates it. I can't even watch trailers that are jumpy because I scream, I shout. I remember getting kicked out of the cinema during The Village because I screamed so much, and my boyfriend at the time was like, "We're leaving. This is embarrassing." So yeah, when I watched it, I was all over the place, behind my arms and jumping out my seat too.
And yeah, trailers are getting scarier, I think, as well, for one thing. Hayley is a very good swimmer and really good at keeping, holding her breath underwater. What kind of training was involved for that aspect of the movie for you?
Quite a lot. I'm not a strong swimmer. I wasn't before. I'm one of those people that dip in to cool down and then go back to sunbathing. So I did a lot of training. I actually trained at the London Aquatic Centre, where we held the Olympics, and that was awesome. I had a great coach who I did about an hour a day with for 6 weeks leading up to the shoot. And he really got me in the best shape of my life, and we worked on breathing and stamina. Also, just shooting 18 hours a day in a water tank is really, really difficult. So he wanted me to just get used to being in the water a lot of the time.
So I just wonder, when it comes to the alligators, how much is sort of based on fact, or how much artistic license did you take with kind of the way that they behave in the movie?
I really wanted to make a movie that will be almost like based on a true story. So I wanted them to be as real as possible. It's not a monster movie, it's not a giant alligators, no radioactive beast. They don't have an agenda of revenge or whatsoever. So they're all based on actual footage. And thanks to the internet, I mean, there is so much you can find online about crocodile and alligators. So for months and months, we just try to find the best, element, the most visceral, the most brutal, the most scary images of crocodile and alligators. So all the CGI artists and the visual effect company could work to create those alligators for crawl.
So guys, I watched the film the other night, loved it, but as soon as it ended, when I left the theatre, I texted my handyman because a few weeks ago I had a new glass shower door installed, and I said, I hope this is alligator proof. I love that scene, by the way.
We love it. It's very cinematic. I've never seen anything like that. It's fantastic, that bathroom scene.
Yeah, amazing. What was it like working with Kaya, Barry, and director Alex?
It was a fantastic experience. Sam and I both have wanted to work with Alex for a long time, so this is the perfect movie to show off his skills from movies that he gleaned in his movies like Hills Have Eyes and High Tension and Piranha, and Kaya and Barry are real troopers. They're great actors, but to be able to endure 40 days of being in a water tank and Alex in there with him in a wetsuit for hours upon hours, it was fantastic. And a rewarding thing was that Kaya told Sam and I that, and she's been on big movies like Pirates of the Caribbean, these huge franchises like the Maze Runner franchise, and she said this was one of the best filmmaking experiences she ever had. And she said that to me with her blood makeup on, and it was very funny. So it's great.
Because she had to carry the movie on her and Barry's shoulders only?
Yeah, the
Is
whole
that
thing.
right?
Yeah.
It's probably is a really hard challenge because they're on screen every single minute of the movie, and it's not like you cut away to something. It's really them, and you don't leave them.
Yeah.
So the continuity of not just your makeup, but the performance, where you are, the level of desperation or hope, you've got to really track that for 90 minutes, which is 40 days as an actor.
Yeah.
And you got to do it while in water. And like you had mentioned, acting in water, even though the water is warm most of the time, your body temperature starts to drop, nevertheless, and by the end of the day, it must be absolutely exhausting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of action, but it's not all action. There's a sort of father-daughter relationship at the centre of the film, and you do have quite a lot of dialogue scenes to do. But at one of them, I was just thinking, were you almost up to your necks in water whilst you're having a conversation? What's that like to shoot?
It's really fun. I mean, I loved it in that we can't really reset takes because the water is constantly filling. And it's freezing and wet and everyone's miserable and wants to leave. So you have all this adrenaline built up. And when it comes to those big emotional scenes, it just comes out. You're just so pent up and ready to do them that I kind of loved that. I loved that we couldn't control all the elements, that we had to go with it. And we were treating it like it was a natural thing.
And what about the sound? I love the sort of growl they make. Could you tell us a little bit about the sound design for them as well?
I'm very lucky because alligators are some of the most vocal animals, so we didn't have to cheat. They actually are very, very, very loud and very scary with a full range of different sound. if they are like, challenging another male, if they are hunting, if they are protecting their territory. I mean, it's a lot of different sound that we actually got recorded to use in the movie.
What makes this horror movie even more horrific is that the plot is pretty realistic. I mean, you think about it, you've got natural disaster in Florida, alligators, being trapped in your family home. I mean, it's realistically terrifying. So do you think it's ironic that a couple of months ago, news broke that there was a real 11-foot alligator that broke into a home in Florida?
Oh, I think sadly, it's becoming more commonplace with these. Listen, those animals take to higher ground during these natural disasters, and our homes are built on higher ground. So it's a convergence of the two that's just bound to happen more. I don't think we planned on that marketing event, but like it just happened, and we'd seen that actually back with the Texas floods with is it Harvey, I believe. Several people came back to their homes with like alligators inside, large alligators, and so I think that's what inspired the Rasmussen brothers when they first wrote the script.
Mm-hmm. So no PR stunt there.
No PR stunt. Those alligators don't take our cold hard cash.
And what are you looking at? Because the alligators look terrifying to us, but what are you faced with as they're attacking you when you're making the film?
Literally a Serbian man wearing a head-to-toe lime green lycra condom suit.
Which sounds quite scary.
He was a lovely guy, but yeah, it was terrifying. The first day, I was like, nice to meet you. Oh.
And you mentioned the CGI on the alligators. And what about the practical effects? Because I mean, the water, I guess, is really there. At one point, we see the traffic lights down, the wind, and can you tell us about working with some of those effects?
I mean, everything is there. I mean, including you can ask all the cast and the crew. We were in the water every day with the rain and the wind and the wetsuit, and it was crazy tough and very challenging shooting. Only the alligators are like full CG creatures, but it means that every time they move or they are in the frame, you have to have a diver who create the wake on the surface of the water. You have to have like a stuntman, like operating the head of the gator so the actor can react to something. So everything is a mix between practical and visual effect.
And your character says at one point she's an apex predator for days, which her father sort of encouraged her to really think of herself as she's been growing up. And so she's definitely a screen heroine. I just wondered who your sort of movie heroines were that you looked up to perhaps when you were younger, or...
Sarah Connor. 100%. She's my hero still to this day. I think there was something so empowering for me as a child watching her, seeing her flaws, seeing that she wasn't a perfect character, she wasn't a perfect woman. She was a badass and vulnerable and angry and confused, and I just, in the second movie, more so than the first. But yeah, she is my hero still.
They were very realistic. Sam, what went into the look and design of the alligators with the CGI?
Well, Alex, like any professional facing a very difficult task, used an array of tools to perform it. So he used CGI for sure, but he also used prosthetics. I think Alex is a big believer in having things on camera, practical effects, something you can see and feel, have the water really interacting with their tails and letting that water splash on the actor, really put them in the scene with something real. So he did that where appropriate, when it was right. But sometimes, like you like to explain, there were certain movements of an alligator that are just so primal and quick. Can you explain how, Alex?
Well, so in looking at how fast our crew could move the mechanical alligator, even with the strongest people, you can't move that fast, because if you've seen even in like nature videos that when they creep up and they grab an antelope, when they grab that antelope from the water, it's lightning fast. And at that point, he knew that he only could do that and recreate that reality, which is super important, and is probably why you jumped a lot in your movie, through visual effects. And Rodeo Visual Effects was our vendor, and they had done the alligators in Tarzan and in Jumanji, and so we asked him to take that and go even more realistic.
Wow, well, it definitely was.
Even when it was CGI that Alex chose, he would have in the scene a rubber stand-in for the alligator, so it would be splashing, so that when he replaced it with a CGI alligator, you'd still see real water moving off of it. You'd see real water interacting with the set from a CGI construct. So he's very learned in how to combine and mix his tools.
Practical with CG.
I was terrified at times watching the movie and jumping out my seat, but I also laughed quite a bit as well. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that balance of the tension and the scares, but also letting us laugh without it becoming silly, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I made a proper horror comedy with Piranha years ago, and I made also some very straightforward horror movies like The Hills Have Eyes or High Tension. So I wanted to do something that was kind of not in between, but something with the best of both worlds. Where, in one hand, I wanted something that was so intense and suspenseful that people would be on the edge of their seat on the ride, but because of that intensity and that, like very extreme fear that they will feel, you have to laugh. It's like a roller coaster. In the roller coaster, you really get scared. And at the same time, you cannot help yourself to, have this exhilarating laughing because it's so stressful, but in the same time, it's so good.
And I won't give you an alligator quiz, but
please don't.
I just wondered if there was anything that might surprise us that you learnt about them or any interesting alligator.
I think the big thing was when we were filming, your instinct is to run, obviously, but you'll see in the movie there are moments where you actually have to move very slowly. They can hear every ripple in the water and every bubble, every sound. So the idea is that you have to move as calmly and wade through the water really gently, which every instinct tells you not to do. So you have to kind of really focus and do that.
It's part survival guide as well, isn't it, the movie?
Yes, survival guide.
Kaya,
Because in London, you never know.
You never know what might be coming down the Thames.
Yeah, exactly.
Kaya, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey